The Geneva Museum of Horology received a donation in 2018. A pocket watch from 1895. Gold-plated. Hand-engraved. Exquisite craftsmanship. It would be a magnificent addition to their collection. But when they X-rayed it for preservation analysis, the technician called security. Because the X-ray showed 7 small skeletons inside the watch mechanism. Human bone structure. Child-sized. But impossibly small. Only 3 centimeters long. And they weren't just bones. The bones were connected to gears. Muscles were attached to springs. Nerves were wired to metal cables. And the hearts, visible on the X-ray, were still beating, perfectly synchronized with the watch's ticking. 1 tick. 1 heartbeat. 123 years. 3.9 billion heartbeats. 7 children. Still alive. Still imprisoned. Before you start watching, hit that subscribe button. Because this story isn't just about a watch. This is about a father who tried to make his children immortal. And he succeeded. But at a cost no father should ever pay. This is the story of Hermann Adler. A genius clockmaker. And the cruelest father. Basel, Switzerland. November 14, 1895. Winter was approaching. Hermann Adler was 47 years old. He was Basel's most famous clockmaker. Kings, wealthy collectors, aristocrats. Everyone wanted his handmade watches. Each one was a work of art. They didn't just tell time, they told stories. Hermann had a workshop. In one of the narrow streets of the old town. A 3-story wooden building. The ground floor was the workshop, the upper floors were home. That's where he lived with his 7 children. His wife had died 3 years earlier. Tuberculosis. Since then, Hermann had been both father and mother. But he loved his children deeply. He gave each one special attention. The children's names were Elise, Klaus, Greta, Otto, Liesel, Franz, and the youngest Marta. The oldest was 14, the youngest was 3. On the morning of November 14th, neighbors noticed something. The workshop windows were dark. Normally Hermann started work early. But that morning, there were no lights. By noon, no one had opened the door. A customer called the police. The police broke down the door. The house was empty. Completely empty. But the strange thing was, nothing was missing. Food was on the table. Half eaten. The children's toys were in their places. Hermann's tools were in the workshop. But Hermann and his 7 children were gone. There was no note. No explanation. No sign of struggle. They had just vanished. The police searched for weeks. They combed Basel, surrounding villages, forests. No trace was found. No witnesses. No one had heard anything that night. 6 months later, the investigation was closed. Official statement: probably emigrated as a family to another country. Reason unknown. But no one believed it. Why would Hermann abandon all his possessions, his workshop, his reputation? And how could he leave without telling anyone? For 123 years, the story was forgotten. It remained only as a local legend. The vanishing clockmaker. Until 2018. Not much is known about Hermann Adler. But a few documents in the archives give us clues about him. He was born in 1848. Grew up in Basel. Started in the clockmaking trade at a young age. Rose quickly. Opened his own workshop at 25. But Hermann wasn't just a clockmaker. He was also an inventor. He was obsessed with micromechanics. He made small moving figures inside watches. Birds would flap their wings. People would walk. They would play music and dance. Collectors paid fortunes for these special watches. But Hermann wasn't focused on money, he was focused on progress. Smaller. More precise. More complex. In 1890, he wrote in a clockmaking journal, "One day I will make mechanisms so small they cannot be seen with the eye. But they will still work. Because life is not a matter of size. Life is a matter of movement." At the time, no one paid attention to these words. They saw it as just an artist's dream. But Hermann was serious. When his wife Anna died in 1892, Hermann changed. He became more withdrawn. Cut off his social life. Focused only on his children and his work. Neighbors started hearing strange things. Sounds from the workshop late at night. Machine sounds. Metal sounds. And sometimes, screams. A neighbor later told police, "One night I looked through the window. Hermann was working on something in the workshop. Something very small. He was using a microscope. And he was crying. He kept repeating, "I will save you. You won't die. None of you will die." Anna's death had broken Hermann. He lived in fear of losing his children too. Tuberculosis, cholera, diphtheria. Children died so easily in those days. Half of all families never saw their children grow up. Hermann was looking for a solution. A scientific solution. But what he found wasn't a solution. It was a curse. June 2018. Zurich, Switzerland. An estate sale. An elderly woman had died. Miriam Volkmer, 89 years old. She had no children. Her house was being liquidated. Her belongings were being sold. The liquidation company was cleaning the house when they found an old chest in the basement. Wood, rotted damp. Inside were old items, letters, photographs, documents. And a small velvet box. Dark blue. Worn but preserved. Inside, a gold-plated pocket watch. Heavy. Beautiful. Hand-engraved details. A name was carved on the case, Hermann Adler, Basel, 1895. The liquidation company took the watch to an antique dealer. The dealer was shocked. "This is Hermann Adler's watch," he said. "The legendary clockmaker. The man who disappeared." The dealer did some research. Miriam Volkmer's family was from Basel. Her great-grandfather had been Hermann Adler's neighbor. A few days before his disappearance, Hermann had given him this watch for safekeeping. "I'll come back one day," he'd said. "Until then, keep this safe." But Hermann never returned. The dealer sent the watch to the Geneva Museum of Horology. The museum was excited. "This is a historic find," they said. Before adding the watch to their collection, the museum followed standard procedure: photography, X-ray analysis, preservation assessment. Dr. Elena Richter was the museum's chief conservation expert. She took the X-ray and experienced the shock of her life. Dr. Richter set up the X-ray machine, placed the watch, pressed the button. The image appeared on the screen. And Dr. Richter stepped back. Her chair fell over. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Because the X-ray showed this. Inside the watch mechanism were 7 small human skeletons. Perfect anatomy. Skull. Ribs. Spine. Hands. Feet. Everything was in the right place. But the scale was horrifying. Each skeleton was only 3 centimeters long. And the skeletons weren't just sitting there, they were integrated into the mechanism. Bones were connected to metal gears. The spine was mounted to a spring. The skull was fixed to a small bell mechanism. The rib cage was used as some kind of resonator. But the most shocking thing was this: soft tissue was visible on the X-ray. There were muscles. There were organs. Lungs, liver, kidneys. All there. Tiny. But anatomically correct. And hearts. 7 small hearts. And they were all moving. Very slowly. Synchronized with the watch's tick-tock rhythm. 1 tick. 1 heartbeat. Once per second. For 123 years. Dr. Richter picked up the phone. Her hands were shaking. "Call the director," she said. "Immediately. And the police too. I think there are people in here. Living people." Museum management made the decision quickly, full analysis before opening the watch. A team was assembled. Dr. Elena Richter, conservation expert. Dr. Anton Muller, biologist, University of Basel. Professor Kristen Baumann, horological historian. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, nanotechnology expert, called in from Tokyo. The first question: were the figures really alive? Dr. Muller used a special microneedle to take a small sample. He made a tiny hole in the watch's side panel. Inserted a thin needle inside. Touched one of the figure's arms. Took a microscopic cell sample. He examined it under the microscope. And couldn't believe it. "They're alive," he whispered. "They're actually alive." The cells were living. But their metabolism was incredibly slow. 50,000 times slower than normal human cells. As if they were living at a different speed of time. DNA analysis was performed. The result was shocking: this was human DNA. 19th century European origin. And there were 7 different DNA profiles. 3 female, 4 male. But the most important finding: genetic analysis could estimate age. The cells were 123 years old. But they were still functioning. Dr. Tanaka examined from a nanotechnology perspective. Analyzed the mechanical connections of the figures. This is incredible, she said. The bones are fused to the metal. At a molecular level. Organic and inorganic matter merged. This technology didn't exist in 1895. Even today we can barely do this. Professor Baumann examined the historical records, found Hermann Adler's notes, letters, order books, and found a journal. In Hermann's handwriting. Secret. He'd hidden it even from his family. The final entries were horrifying. Professor Baumann read the journal aloud in the museum conference room. The team listened in silence. October 10, 1895. I lost Anna. I'm going to lose the children too. Diseases are everywhere. Diphtheria, tuberculosis, measles. They'll take them one by one. I can't. I must protect them. Forever. October 15, 1895. Working on miniaturization. If I make them small enough, maybe time won't affect them. Do insects and spiders live longer because they're small? Does time work differently at small scales? October 23, 1895. Did the first experiment. Miniaturized a mouse. I succeeded. The mouse went down to 2 centimeters. But it died. Died immediately. Its organs collapsed. Couldn't withstand the miniaturization stress. October 28, 1895. Found the solution. Strengthen the organs with mechanical support. Metal frame. Mechanical heart support. Reinforce muscles with springs. That way they can be both small and functional. November 3, 1895. Tried another mouse. This time with mechanical support. It lived. 3 centimeters. And still living. Eating, moving, breathing. I did it. I did it. November 8, 1895. But there's a problem. The mouse changed. It no longer behaves like a mouse. It just stands there. Sometimes it looks at me. There's something in its eyes. As if it's aware. As if it knows it's imprisoned. And angry. November 10, 1895. The mouse died. Lived 5 days. Did an autopsy. Its organs had stopped. But the cause wasn't physical. It was psychological. The mouse gave up. Being miniaturized, mechanized, it was too traumatic. It killed its soul. November 12, 1895. But humans are different. Humans are stronger. They'll understand. They'll know it's for their own good. My children will understand. Father is saving them. They'll live forever. Never get sick. Never die. November 13, 1895. Tomorrow I'll do it. I'll miniaturize the children. All of them. Then I'll place them in a watch. A special watch. My masterpiece. Inside they'll live forever. Protected. Safe. With me. November 14, 1895. God forgive me. But there's no other way. If I lose them, I'll go mad. This was the last entry. A deep silence filled the conference room. Dr. Muller spoke. His voice was shaking. He miniaturized his children? Did this with his own hands? Professor Baumann nodded. It appears so. Dr. Richter was crying. He was a monster. A monster. Dr. Tanaka tried to stay calm. But, how is this possible? This technology didn't exist in 1895. Miniaturization, mechanical fusion, metabolism slowing. These are impossible, said Dr. Muller. I know. But a madman can achieve the impossible. Because he doesn't care about rules. The team had to make a difficult decision. Should they open the watch? If they opened it, they would face 7 children who had been living in there for 123 years. Were they still conscious? Were they suffering? What were they thinking? What were they feeling? And if it was opened, could they survive? Dr. Muller was worried. The system is very delicate. The watch mechanism is their life support. If we stop it, they might die. But Dr. Richter insisted. But they can't stay there. This is torture. 123 years inside a watch. We must end this. Professor Baumann intervened. But by what right? Is this something we should decide? Maybe they want to stay there. Nonsense, said Dr. Richter. No one wants to live like this. Dr. Tanaka spoke calmly. There's a way. Before we open it, we can communicate. Communicate. Yes. Through vibration. Sound waves. If they're conscious, they can hear. We can send a message. Ask questions. See if they can respond. The team decided to try. Dr. Tanaka set up a special device. Piezoelectric sensor. Placed the watch on the table. The sensor would detect vibrations. Then, using a small speaker, she sent sound waves to the watch. Dr. Richter leaned into the microphone. Spoke in English. Hello. Can you hear us? My name is Dr. Elena Richter. We're at the Geneva Museum. Are you Hermann Adler's children? She waited. Nothing on the sensor. She tried again. This time in German, their language. Still silence. Dr. Muller shook his head. Maybe they're too small. No vocal cords. They can't speak. But then, the sensor started vibrating. Very faintly. But it was there. A rhythmic pattern. Long short. Morse code. Dr. Tanaka quickly decoded it. Wrote it on the screen. First message, yes. Dr. Richter's breath caught. She continued. How long have you been in there? The sensor vibrated again. Message came. Very long. Very, very long. Dr. Richter couldn't hold back her tears. We want to help you. What can we do? Another message came. We are here. Then a second message. Please help us. The third message was longer. 123 years. So much pain. Dr. Richter started crying. My God. They're conscious. They're still conscious. And they're suffering. Before opening the watch, the team searched for the rest of Hermann's journal. Maybe there were explanations. Maybe notes on how it was done. Professor Baumann searched the Basel archives. And found something, Hermann Adler's will. Never opened. Because no heir had ever come forward. The will was opened. Inside was another letter. Sealed. It said to be opened only by the person who finds the watch. Professor Baumann broke the seal. Read the letter. And his face turned white. What does it say? Asked Dr. Richter. Professor Baumann read the letter with a trembling voice. To whoever reads this. My name is Hermann Adler. If you are reading this letter, it means the watch has been found. And the children inside it too. I must tell you something. A confession. I did not miniaturize them. You misunderstand. I didn't even make them. I'm just a clockmaker. But one night, something came. To my workshop. I cannot describe it. It was not human. Perhaps an angel. Perhaps a demon. Perhaps a being from another world. That being made me an offer. Do you want your children to live forever? It said. Diseases cannot take them. Time cannot take them. They will stay with you forever. I accepted. Because I had lost Anna. I couldn't bear to lose the children too. But that being didn't tell me the truth. It didn't let them live. It imprisoned them. Miniaturized them. Put them in the mechanism. And entrusted them to me. As long as the watch runs, they will live, it said. But if it stops, they will die. Immediately. In agony. I was afraid. I couldn't wind the watch. Because if I did, I would condemn them to more torture. But I couldn't stop it. Because if I did, they would die. That's why I gave the watch to my neighbor. And I fled. I went to the Alps. And threw myself off a cliff. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't save my children. I only condemned them to eternal prison. If you are reading this letter, please, stop the watch. Let them go. Allow them to die. Because death is more merciful than living like this. I beg your forgiveness. And theirs. Hermann Adler. November 15, 1895 inch. The room was silent. Dr. Muller whispered, that being, what was it? No one answered. Because no one knew. The team faced a terrible decision. Option 1, stop the watch. Free the children. But this meant their death. Option 2, keep the watch running. Keep them alive. But this also meant their eternal torture. Dr. Richter sent a message. We can offer you two choices. First, we stop the watch. You find peace. But this means death. Second, we keep the watch running. You continue to live. But you remain in the same condition. The decision is yours. Which do you want? There was a long silence. Then the sensor vibrated. A message came. First. Then it continued. End it. Enough. Dr. Richter couldn't hold back her tears.
I understand. We will.
The team made preparations. They would stop the watch slowly. Rather than unwinding the winding mechanism, they would let it down gently. That way there would be no sudden shock. Dr. Tanaka slowly loosened the winding stem on the back of the watch.
The tick-tock slowed.
Instead of once per second, once every 2 seconds. Then once every 3 seconds. The sensor sent one last message.
Thank you. Then.
We are free.
Then, the watch stopped. The ticking ceased. Silence.
Dr. Muller immediately opened the watch.
Looked inside.
7 small figures were there. No longer moving. But on their faces, there was peace. For the first time in 123 years, they were at rest. The Geneva Museum of Horology made 7 small graves.
In the museum's garden. Symbolic.
Because the bodies were inside the watch. But has respect for their souls.
On the stones, only names. Elise. Klaus. Greta. Otto. Liesel. Franz. Marta.
7 siblings. The oldest was 14, the youngest was 3 when they disappeared. 123 years later, they were finally free. And on each gravestone, the same sentence was carved. 123 years imprisoned. Finally free. The watch is displayed in the museum. But it no longer runs. And it's empty inside. Because the children were buried. In a real grave. In Basel. Next to their mother. Sometimes visitors look at the watch and ask, why is this so important? The guide tells them
the whole story. And people are shocked.
Because this isn't just a watch. This is a warning. Love can sometimes create the cruelest prison. And immortality is sometimes worse than death. Hermann Adler loved his children. But he destroyed them. And now they're all underground together.
Finally at peace. Forever.